This is a song that I wrote after my son went to college and my wife realized that there wasn't going to be any buffer between us anymore. It was a very difficult moment for Mrs. White, and she's so happy that I travel around the country sharing it with strangers. Here we go. Rascal is the dog, he ain't too bright. Me and Rascal were sitting on the couch last night when my woman come in and she started to cry. She looked at us with such terror in her eyes. She said, I have raised these children for 18 years while you have done nothing. We found the pulse of the audience already. And now they're growing up and they're moving out of here, and my big reward for all that I have been through is this dog as dumb as mud. And you, yippee-yahoo. Rascal looked at me in disbelief. He said, she can't be talking about you and me. She has got us to spend the rest of her whole life with. Would you please tell her how incredibly lucky she is? And I said, who is gonna love you any better than this? We'll wake you up every morning with big wet kisses. When we hear the police sirens in your neighborhood, we throw our heads up in the air and we howl for you. This is gonna be a good night. And that's cool. You gotta admit, that's pretty cool. Well, you know, I don't believe we had succeeded in convincing her of the outrageous good fortune that had just befallen her. In fact, instead of looking happy as she could be, she looked a little bit, well, you know, suicidal to me. But hey, kids go to college and kids move away, but dogs and husbands, that's who stays. To you it seems like a terrible trick of fate, but me and Rascal don't see it that way. We're thinking, ain't we cuddly, ain't we cute? We're both real funny, we're both real true. There's another thing about us that's very cool. If you scratch us on our belly, our left leg moves. And you gotta admit that's cool. I think I'm scaring some of the new people. Well, okay, so maybe we ain't that smart. We're a couple of mutts with a lot of heart. This is what I look like when I'm flirting. And when I need new medication. But no one could ever love you better or give you more loyalty than this dog, as dumb as mud, than this dog as dumb as mud, than this dog as dumb as a mud. And me, how lucky can one girl be? She's got a dog like you and a man like me. We'll be together well into this next century. Put that knife down, babe. Rascal, I don't think that Mama's too happy. Maybe we should sing for her. She always likes that. Appears to be several potential canines here in the audience this evening. Maybe if we told them about the domestic difficulties that we're having on the home front, they might chime in and sing along. You know, in a lot of communities, if you heard, I don't know, 200 people in a firehouse howling at the top of their lungs the way that we're going to be in a couple of minutes, it might draw some attention. This is downtown Framingham, and this is a folk club here, so I don't think it's going to draw any attention at all, really. So in a couple of minutes, we're all going to be howling, and two people are going to be walking by, and they'll hear us, and one of them will look at the other and say, oh, well, don't worry about that. It's probably just another workshop. That's right. Inner peace. through group howling. That's the name of our workshop here this evening. Let's see if we can shake them up over at the gas station across the street. All right, 1, 2, 3. I used to be a stand-up comedian, but there was too much money in that. And I had to go back to being a folk singer. But I love stand-up. I love everything about it. I teach it. I study it. And if you know anything about stand-up, you'll notice that a lot of comedians build their whole act on the differences between men and women. There's a good reason for that. A lot of differences between men and women, and it's easy land for the mining of humorous material. Now, if you came to my house and you were trying to figure out the difference between my wife and I, there would be two things that would be obvious right away. The first thing would be blood pressure. That's right, I said blood pressure. I have high blood pressure. My doctor wants to put me on lisinopril. I didn't know what it was, so I went to the internet, because the internet is where you go to learn everything that's not true about what you're interested in. So there, in the deepest, darkest, most furthermost regions of the lisinopril section of the World Wide Web, I read that lisinopril was made from snake venom. Snake venom. And I thought to myself, you know, when I was a younger man, the idea of taking a little snake venom on the weekend might have appealed to me. But now, I am not a younger man anymore, and I do not want to take the snake venom, so I have to change my life. I have to stop eating salty food, and hydrate, and exercise, and do all the many things I have so successfully avoided to this point in my life. So I bought this machine to take my blood pressure. It's a box like this. It's got a screen on it with some numbers come up in it. Got some buttons here, and a tube comes up, and this thing wraps around my arm, and I press the buttons, and it sounds like this. And then, two numbers come up in the screen. And I don't like those numbers, so I do it again. But this time, I'm thinking peaceful thoughts. I don't want to take the snake venom. I'm trying to remember what that hippie girl said about chakras or some shit like that. I'm just trying to breathe. I'm thinking about children playing in fields of sunflowers, and I'm just trying to get a good number out of this machine. And one part of me is so focused, trying to get a good number, trying to breathe, relax, and the other part of me is so aggravated that I have to do this. But I'm focused on trying to do the right thing, trying to get the good number. I'm trying to breathe, and I look in the doorway of my office, and my wife is standing there, and my wife has low blood pressure. Did I say low? I meant no. She has no blood pressure, none. And she's standing there eating a 2-pound bag of salty potato chips, and she's taunting me. Why do you have high blood pressure? Munch, munch, crunch, crunch. I don't have high blood pressure. I have low blood pressure. Munch, crunch. You know, if you were more like me, you wouldn't have this problem. Crunch, munch, crunch. And I look at the screen on my machine, and it says, "Call the ambulance!" There's like smoke coming out of it. I'm like, I told you never to talk to me when I'm hooked up to this thing. Why do you have high blood pressure? Crunch, munch. I don't have high blood pressure. I have low blood pressure. Munch, crunch. I go, you know what? there's a good reason why you have low blood pressure. Why? Why do I have low blood pressure? I go, the reason why you have low blood pressure is because you are not married to you! Now, the other obvious difference between my wife and I is what it is we choose to watch on television. Now, if I have the remote control in my hand on those rare and glorious days when nobody's bothering me and I can do whatever I want, I will always watch baseball. I love baseball, but my wife hates baseball. And when I say she hates baseball, I'm not saying she don't like it. I'm saying she hates it. She hates it. And that's why I married her. Now, I can see you're not all with me on this. Here, come closer. Let me explain something to you. Marriage is difficult. A lot of problems. Starts out like this. Come here, kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy, I love you. We're gonna buy a little house in Metro West. Then you have these little babies, and they love you. They just look at you with their big eyes and they love you. And then they become teenagers and they hate you. They hate you. And then you went for a job interview and the person that interviewed you, who was going to be your boss later, he seemed normal. He didn't seem like a psychopath during the interview. But then you got the job, 10 years went by, the man is insane. He's insane. You're working for a psychopath. More pressure, more struggle. Then you went to buy a house and you're signing these papers at the signing. 1, 2, 3, and they keep talking about this thing, an adjustable rate. You don't know what it means. Like that. Yeah, 10 years later, you know what it means now? It means you're never going to pay for that house. More pressure, more struggle, more the boss is a psychopath. I'm never going to pay for this house. A lot of problems, struggles every day. So, it's hard to stay married. It's hard to stay married. So in order to stay married a long time, you have to build stress relief into every day of your marriage. So think about this. If you're a man or a woman and you love baseball and you marry someone who hates baseball over the life of a 30, 40, 50-year marriage, that's 162 times a year. For 3 glorious hours that the person you're married to will leave you the fuck alone. All I'm saying, so you can stay married a long time if you can build 162 3-hour reprieves from each other into every summer. So, it's a beautiful day, the middle of the summer, a million things I could be doing around that house. Instead, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching baseball. My wife will come in and look at me with such disgust. And in her mind, she's counting down a list of 115 things that she's sure at this moment I could / should be mowing, trimming, painting, sanding, bringing up from the basement, putting into the attic, something. But instead, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching baseball. And it doesn't help that I got my shirt open so my belly button can watch the game too. That's not helpful. I'm not being helpful in those moments. And she will look at me with such disgust. And she'll look at the TV, and she'll look at me, and she'll look at the TV, and she'll look back at me, and she'll say, there is nothing going on that TV. It's just a bunch of men standing around in a field, spitting and scratching themselves. And I will say to her, yes. It's terrible. You should get as far away from this as possible. Unfortunately for me, I am hopelessly ensnared in their evil web, but you could save yourself! Now, conversely, and I know this is not possible, but I am here to testify that the impossible is possible. If I walk into a room in the morning, in the evening, in the middle of the night, any time in the 24-hour cycle, and my wife has decided what to watch on the television in that room, 100% of the time, I will look, and there will be a woman crying on the television. That is not possible. There can't always be a woman crying on the television. Now, we have the FiOS plan in my house, and I was looking through the book trying to figure out what I'm paying for, and I see we have HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and there it was, the Crying Woman's Channel. Did you know you were paying for the Crying Woman's Channel? Look in that book, it's in there. Now that's a difference between men and women. Now in my adult life, any time that I've had an opportunity to go through my list of possible entertainment options for a given evening, the idea of watching a woman in crisis crying on my television, it doesn't make the top 1,000. When my wife gets something out of it, something that only she can understand, and because I'm a good husband, and I'm trying to get in touch with my extraordinarily elusive feminine side, sometimes when she's watching the Crying Woman's Channel, I will go in and I will sit beside her and I will study. And she hates when I do that because she knows it's only a matter of time before I start mocking the program. But I don't start out that way. I have good intentions. I love you. 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 And you need to explain to me. You went to work today. You came home. There were things that you did around the house. You have 1 free hour with which you can do whatever you want, and then you have to go to bed and start all over again. I need you to explain to me why you would choose to share the only free hour that you have in the whole day with this woman on the television. Eye makeup running all over the place. Everybody's lying to her. Nothing but righteous indignation streaming out of every character on the program. She's got some kind of disease that only Oprah can understand. I need to understand why. And so I study the Crying Woman's Channel, and within 7 minutes, an invisible tube comes out of the television, and it lodges into the front of my cranium. And with every syllable that is feloniously called dialogue on the Crying Woman's Channel, I can feel the television sucking numbers off the top of my IQ. And after 20 minutes, I lose my ability to do small multiplication tables. And after a half an hour, I'm just sitting there crying. And I don't know why. Now, a couple of years ago, my wife had surgery. Minor surgery. That's what people were calling it. Let me tell you something. There are precious few absolute truths in this world, but here is an absolute truth. Between this minute and the day you die, I guarantee you that any time you hear the term minor surgery, that it will be coming out of the mouth of a person who is not having the surgery. She had her gallbladder removed. I don't know what world you live in, but in my world, Donnyland, I call it, over here in Donnyland, reaching in, yanking out an internal organ, not minor. If you think it is, how about I just wander off the stage and kind of go out into the crowd and just sort of randomly pick someone and begin the process? I feel we can all rest assured that if we see Dawn White, the folk singer from Lynn, Massachusetts, removing our gallbladder, we will be thinking, you know, something major is happening to me. So we're taking her down to surgery, and she's got an IV in both arms, and her arms are tied down to the bars on the side of the bed. She couldn't move them. She started to cry, and she asked me if I would wipe her eyes for her because she couldn't move her hands. And I said, okay. I took a tissue, and I wiped her left eye and then her right eye. And while they were wheeling her down to surgery, I took the tissue, and I folded it this way and that way, and I put it in my pocket. Why? I'll tell you why. Because if something happened and she didn't come out of that surgery, I would have treasured those 2 teardrops for the rest of my life. What am I saying? I'll tell you what I'm saying. I'm saying being married to this woman for 35 years has made me a girl. I'm a girl now. And I have a new appreciation for the Crying Woman's Channel. I'm going to play a song for you that has come pretty close to getting me thrown out of a lot of church basement coffee houses over the years, but fortunately, they're mostly Unitarian, and I have no idea what you'd have to say in a Unitarian church to get thrown out. I mean, I've done all kinds of interesting things that would get me excommunicated from most church basement coffee houses, but at the end of the show, in the Unitarian church, I walk out, and the Unitarians are sort of leaning up against the wall with this otherworldly glow about them, and they don't say, you know, that wasn't appropriate what you said in church, Mr. White, or anything like that. They just look at me, and they presume that eventually I will evolve. I don't think so. I think if you see me 10 years from now, you will see the same one-celled organism that you've seen so far here this evening. So many years ago, I was the undesirable transient element. What does that mean? That means I was hitchhiking around America trying to find myself. And I did find myself in Washington State, impoverished. And I got a job picking pears, which I wasn't really qualified to do it, but I lied on the application. And all of the fruit tramps, which is what we are affectionately known as out there, they all had dogs, and I had the only female, and she chose this extraordinarily inopportune time to go into heat, and I had the tremendous lack of good taste to write a song about it. And continuing with that bad judgment, I would like to play it for you here this evening. So this is called The Shameful Ballad of Lyja, the Precocious Orchard Queen. And in order to get us in the mood, I'm going to whistle the theme to Lassie. That's right. For those of you that are under the age of 100, Lassie was a dog that was on television. What'd you say, girl? Timmy fell down an old abandoned mine shaft? What, again? Kid's a fucking idiot. Wouldn't you love to hear June Lockhart say that? Really, Timmy? Another mine shaft? Big hole in the ground, walk around it. Let me tell you about the fall of '79. We were running out of money, we were running out of time. We wound up picking pears way over in Washington. For 8 months before that, we were hitching down the road with a dog, Elijah, 1 year old. We had that dog ever since she was a little pup. Now a baby was growing up. What got into Elijah, I just can't say. I guess she started reaching the curious age, and she had this aroma she was sending all over the land. And in every backyard for 4 or 5 miles, every male dog was howling and going wild. They were driving their owners crazy, but they didn't care. Dog love was in the air. Jumping out of windows, breaking off chains. Poodles, Cocker Spaniel, German Shepherds, Great Danes. They were raunchy, rabid, ugly, mangy, mean. They were trying to find the orchard queen. I was in a tree, and Elijah was right down beneath me. To my surprise, I saw 25 male dogs closing in on her. And so I picked me a pair and I threw it on down, and I hit a Cocker Spaniel and knocked him to the ground. He got up quick, he was dazed, but he wasn't deterred. I threw down another and I hit him on the head, and he went down hard. I thought he was dead, but he still went for Elijah after taking 2 direct hits. The little sucker was passionate. We jumped from the tree, we ran to the shack, pursued by a horny, crazed wild dog pack, and our dog Elijah fought us every inch of the way. And when we got to the shack, we were both in shock, and we felt like we were in the movie by Hitchcock. We looked at each other and we didn't know what to say. How could our little girl act this way? You know, you try to bring them over right. You feed them Alpo, keep them tied at night. You try to teach them morals and teach them about society. One day, they're an innocent child. The next day, you know they're out running so wild. Elijah, I never thought you would turn out to be the picture of promiscuity. The next morning, I took a pair of my BVD underwear, and I put them on Elijah, and I put her tail hole. Let's try to picture that if we could. And I let her run free in the orchard that day, and every male dog in Washington state took a try at Elijah, but the only thing they felt was the low-budget chastity belt. That night when we got to the shack, I took the underwear, I threw them out back. They were wet and they were dirty, and I didn't think much of it. I didn't realize that they were the equivalent of the Holy Grail in the male dog population. Silly me, because Lord Almighty, what happened then when the male dogs got a good whiff of them? It was the biggest dog riot that there ever was anyway. It was over Elijah's underwear. They fought and rumbled, they brawled all night. They were killing one another till the morning light. They were fighting to the death for the greatest prize anyway. When it all was finished, when it all was done, a Doberman Pinscher was the champion. He was wounded, but he looked so triumphant standing there with Elijah's underwear. He won him fair and square. They were tore to shreds, he didn't care. He looked so proud standing there. Then him and his canine buddies began gleefully to whistle the theme to their favorite 50s television program. And it wasn't easy for them because they were dogs. And whistling is really hard for dogs. They did it anyway, and this is what it sounded like. That's what you like. want to talk about my dad. My dad, Larry White, that was his name. He lived to be 82 years old. He was a cigarette smoking, whiskey drinking, gin rummy playing, World War II, talk off the side of your mouth. Everybody's trying to steal my money. Manly, 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 man. If I ever brought him to a folk concert, his molecules wouldn't hold together. And he never did one thing that he was supposed to do in order to live a long time. He just kept on living. He hadn't cracked a sweat since the 50s. He hadn't eaten a vegetable since World War II. He just ate red meat, and smoked Kent cigarettes, and drank Seagram 7, and kept on living. One of my last conversations with him, he said to me, "Donnie," that's the way he talked, "Donnie, I found a new fried clam place." I'm like, "Dad, what did your doctor say about eating fried clams?" "My doctor?" I'm like, "Yeah." "The one that told me to stop eating fried clams?" I'm like, "Yeah." "He died 20 years ago." "You want to live to be 82? Let's get some fried clam." Now, my dad was Irish, and my mother was Greek. And as we know, as we all know, those two nationalities are forbidden from reproducing. For good reason. Now, it wasn't easy for them. They had to fight everybody to get married back in those days, you know. On the Irish side, my dad bought a little bit of time by allowing his parents to believe that my mother was Italian. Kind of dark, don't like that, but at least she's Catholic. Well, she wasn't Catholic, but she was still dark, and big problems over there. Now, on the other side, the Greek side, my grandfather, John Soteropoulos, he was the sexton at the St. George Greek Orthodox Church. He was the guy that made sure that the church, the altar was shiny and beautiful so that God would feel happy there every Sunday, and that there was a 50-gallon bucket of frankincense so that Father Myhos could asphyxiate the congregation every week. Have you ever been to the Greek church? Anybody? Oh my God, you're like, what the hell? And when he found out that his daughter was marrying, of all things, a Catholic, he lost his mind. He lost his mind. He wouldn't go to the wedding. He wouldn't talk to anybody. He was disgusted. He was sure all his grandchildren were going to hell. It turns out he was right about that. But for reasons he could have never dreamed of. So, that's the way it is, that's the way I am. Now, when you partake in this forbidden cross-pollination of cultures, many bizarre and weird things happen. And in our family, what happened was we got this really strange sense of humor. Now, and one of the idiosyncrasies of our particular sense of humor is that we tend to be the most funny in the most inappropriate situations. Church would be one that would come to mind. Or funerals, perfect example. The way it works with us is the more pressure that we're under, the more funny that we are. Funeral, excellent example. A lot of pressure. Person's dead, everybody's crying, we feel bad, we want to cry, but you are not going to see us cry. That is not going to happen. So we are going to break the tension with humor. We know that it infuriates you. But on behalf of my family, going back 100 generations, I just want to say to everybody here, we do not care about you. We're just trying to take care of ourselves, and this is the only way that we know how. So, let me give you an example. 15 years ago, my dad got pneumonia. He wouldn't go to the doctor. Doesn't like doctors. Turns out, they don't like him either. Hadn't been to the doctor for 40 years. We're like, Dad, who's your primary care physician? It's like, I don't know. I was in the Navy, 1945, in Norfolk, Virginia. Some guy stuck a needle in my ass. Was that him? We're like, no, Dad, that's not your primary care physician. So he doesn't want to go to the doctor. He's got pneumonia. He wants to treat it like a hangover. We're like, Dad, Alka-Seltzer ain't going to cure pneumonia. You have to go to the doctor. I don't want to go to the doctor. I hate the doctor. They're just trying to steal my money. My sister goes over and she has a negotiation with him. And she comes down from the negotiations. And this is what she said. Fried Clam Larry, that's what we call him. Fried Clam Larry. Fried Clam Larry has agreed to go to the emergency room provided that he gets to smoke 100 cigarettes on the ride over. So we bring him to the emergency room, and he's smoking and complaining, this is a bad job, they're just trying to steal my money, I just need some Alka-Seltzer. So we get in there, and we walk in, and right away, a nurse from across the room, she points him out. You, the old bastard with the cigarette, come here. And she puts this thing on his finger to, it registers how much oxygen is in your blood. So she takes it off, and she looks at it, she looks at him, she looks back at the thing, she shakes it a little bit like this, she gives it a couple of these, ping, ping. According to this, Mr. White, you're dead. But since you don't have the good sense to fall down, I think you should come with us. We have a nice bed for you up in intensive care. So we go up to intensive care. Now he's unconscious. They got a vent breathing for him, machines everywhere, tubes, things beeping. They got him on morphine. Morphine. I don't know if you knew this, but apparently there's some kind of rule up the hospital about the family not having any. I figured it was worth asking. But no, only Larry was getting any morphine this day. Now, don't get me wrong, I love that guy. My dad had a theory that he imparted to all of us, and the theory is this. Be yourself, let them deal with it. That should be written right here. But anyway, I love him. I loved him, and so, having a little fun at his expense, but don't get me wrong. They told me he was going to die. My brother and I were there, and so it was hard. Unless you've ever been in that situation, it's hard. And so I guess you could say, for my brother and I, there was a lot of pressure on us. So we're basically saying goodbye to this guy that we love a lot. And my brother's on one side of the bed, and he looks across the bed, and he says to me, Ma told him to quit smoking. He didn't listen. And I said, that's right, Michael. She told him to quit smoking, and he didn't listen. And then my brother says to me, Ma told him to quit drinking. He didn't listen. And I say, that's right. She told him to quit drinking, and he didn't listen. And then my brother says to me, the one time she tells him to drop dead, he listens. And we're laughing and laughing, and the nurses are walking by. What is wrong with this family? Now, Larry was a World War II dad. Now, there was no such thing as a cuddly World War II dad, okay? Hippies invented the cuddly dad later, okay? But if you have a dad from World War II, my dad's idea of telling you that he loved you was to slip $20 in your hand, little slap in the head, hey, go buy your girl something. That was like a big, wet, sloppy hug kiss from Dad. So the one nurturing moment, paternal moment, that I had with Fried Clam Larry is noteworthy, so I'm going to describe it to you. one day he comes up to me and he says, Donnie, I have some wisdom that I want to impart to you so that no one in my family ever has to learn this the hard way. I'm going to give it to you. You're going to teach your children. They're going to teach their children. And I will rest easy up at Pine Grove Cemetery. I go, okay, Dad, what is it? It turns out that he wanted to talk about gun control. It's a complex issue. I really didn't know that Fried Clam Larry had the wherewithal to think it through so thoroughly, but he had. And this is the wisdom that he gave me, and I'm going to share it with you now. He said to me, no drinking man with half a brain would ever have a gun in his house. And I said, why, Dad? And he said, because, son, sooner or later, your wife will shoot you with it. I'm getting kind of emotional just talking about it. So the reason I'm telling you about Larry, 7 years ago, he had a really bad time of it. My mother went to bed, had a stroke, next day, dead. They had just finished their evening argument. Their evening argument that they had every evening for 51 years, and the next day, she was gone. And so he was wrecked. He didn't know what to do. She did everything for him. She was one of those people who did everything for her husband. So after she died, I'm not sure that he knew how a sandwich worked. Like, there were like too many moving parts in it for him to figure out. So after the funeral, we had to go over to the house and give names to all the appliances for him. Larry, this big white thing, that's called a stove. Be careful, hot. This other thing over here, that's called a microwave. If you want a cup of tea, put some water in a cup, open the door, put the cup in, close the door, this button turns it on. This other button here is a timer. You know what, Larry, on second thought, never touch that thing. Now, my mother was born in the wrong time. My mother was born in the wrong time. She would have went to Woodstock. She would have hitchhiked around the country. She would have done everything. She wanted to be a rebel so bad. But she graduated from high school in the 40s, and there was nobody to be a rebel with. It was just her and James Dean, and that was it. And so she lived vicariously through my rotten friends that I had. And being the good son that I am, I accrued a tremendous amount of rotten friends for my mother to hang around with. So when they would be getting chased by the cops, or run away from home, or like escape from juvenile hall, she would hide them down the cellar and let them tell her the stories. You know, my house was like the Underground Railroad for wayward children. And they would sit down in the basement and smoke, and she would just drink in their stories of crimes and misdemeanors like the nutrients that she was deprived of when she was a child. And she would just drink it, and she loved. All the rotten kids loved them. And at the funeral, they all showed up. All of them. They were on, what do you call them? Day passes. Day passes. So, they all showed up at the funeral. It was crowded. My mother was Greek, but not religious. But her sisters demanded that we bring the deacon from the St. George Church to come and talk and keep on talking and not stop talking and talk some more and keep on talking and not stop talking. And so he's up there, my mother's laid out here, and he's saying, please, Jesus, forgive Fotigny. That's my mother's name in Greek, Fotigny. Please forgive Fotigny for her sins. Not just the sins she committed while she was alive, but even the ones that she's committing now that she's dead. And please, Jesus, forgive Virginie for the sins she thought about doing but never got around to. And my brother is just a regular guy, and he's sitting next to me, and he's saying to me, "What sins? That's my mother. I'm gonna kill this guy." And we're trying to keep my brother from killing the deacon. And we're calming him down. In the front row here, we have my mother's 3 sisters. I guess at that time would have been 86, 84, 82 years old. Now, I don't know in your mind if you have a picture of old Greek women at a funeral. I certainly do. Does the color black come to mind? And there they are. Now the matriarch, the oldest one, Constantina, she sends one of my cousins over with a message for my dad. So my dad, me, and my brother and sister are sitting there. My mother's laid out here. Everybody's standing here because it's crowded. And here comes my cousin with a message from my mother's sister. And this is the message. She says to me, loud enough for the 4 of us to hear. "Connie says to tell Larry that his fly's open." Now remember, my dad is wrecked. He's broken. Like my mother was snatched from him after 51 years. He looked to me like he was so ruined that every time he exhaled, he might not have the strength to inhale. So I guess you could say that there was a mountain of pressure on Larry. Galaxies of pressure were pressing down on Fry Clam Larry. And she says, "Tell Larry his fly's open." And I look, and something went pink in his eye. And it wasn't even big enough to be a twinkle. It was like a half a twinkle. It was a twink. Twink! And it had some mischief in it. Mischief that went all the way back to 1938, stealing milk bottles off of somebody's front porch at 4 in the morning before they woke up. And I knew that something was going to come out of his mouth that would be memorable. And he looks at my cousin, and he looks at us with the little twink in his eye. And he goes, "You tell Auntie Connie, what can't get up, can't get out." And we're laughing, and we're laughing. You know, you laugh so hard you fall out of the chair. When people think, "Oh my God, we have to call an ambulance," the family, wait a minute, they're laughing. What's wrong with these people? That's it. Many of you know, as I was developing this career, I have a license to install security systems, and that's what I've done, and I still do it a couple days a week, so I don't have to take every rotten gig that comes along. I can be a little more choosy, play nice places like this. And so I have told people over the years, I am from a town called Lynn, Massachusetts, and I have installed security systems for 20 years, and I tell people that it has been a public service. And they say, "Why?" And I say, "Well, really, for 20 years, I've just been trying to keep my friends out of other people's houses." So I don't know, 6 months ago, I was working on a construction site, swinging a hammer and pulling a fire cable for this job, and all day long I had a sharp pain down my left arm. Sharp pain, left arm, old people, anybody want to talk about that? Not good, right? Well, when I tell young people I have a sharp pain running down my left arm, they're like, "Why don't you go to the gym?" But we know the gym isn't going to solve this problem. And so all day, stays running down my left arm, starts going across my shoulder blades, then still down my arm, across my shoulder blades, and then it started going across my chest. So I guess you could say I was having chest pain. And I am a conscientious father and a conscientious grandfather. A lot of people counting on me in this world. So I didn't waste 1 minute. I didn't waste 1 second. I went directly to the internet. I started typing in my symptoms, and it kept bringing me to this website, www. Guess who's having a heart attack? .omg? No, O-R-G. .org. That's right. So I have 2 doctors. I have a bad doctor, and I have a horrible doctor. So I called my horrible doctor. I called my horrible doctor, and I left a message describing my obvious heart attack symptoms. 3 hours go by. Nobody calls me. So finally, my bad doctor calls me. He's not really a bad doctor, but he's old and weary, and he's been treating people in my hometown for 45 years. So I would describe him as weary and severely disappointed in humanity. The particular cross-section of humanity that he's had to deal with hasn't inspired him to any great hope for the future of the species. So he calls me and he goes, Don, what's going on? And I explain to him. He goes, you need to go to the emergency room. I go, I'm going to go to bed. And he made this sound. Oh. Which I've translated, and this is what it translates to. I need to retire soon. All of my patients are idiots. I don't want to go to the emergency room. I don't want to go. I don't know where you live. I assume your emergency room experience is a reasonably civilized one. I want to describe to you what the emergency room is like in Lynn, Massachusetts on a Friday night, but I can't describe it. It is not describable. It's what the world looks like just before it ends. You go in there on a Friday night, there's 25 heroin addicts who took a sledgehammer to their own hand. Smash! Oh, I need some OxyContin for this problem. The nurses have heard every lie that's ever been told, and they're jaded and disgusted with humanity, and it just sucks down there. I don't want to go, but I go. I learned something when I went, and I'm going to share this with you, too. You know how when you go to the emergency room, it takes a long time to see the doctor? Well, it turns out that there are 2 words that you can say that totally, completely change all of that. Do you know what they are? Chest pain. Chest pain are like the magic words. You go in and say chest pain, the duck comes down and Groucho gives you the money. I see some young people out there. Groucho was a comedian. He lived a long time ago. Never mind. All right. So I go up to the window. And the kid says to me, what's going on, Mr. White? I say, I'm having chest pain. He says, chest pain? Mr. White, you are our grand prize winner. A disco ball comes down, a band starts playing, there's trumpets blaring, confetti coming down. Step right in. We have a nice table for you over by the window. Your waitress will be with you in just a minute. While they're taking me out of the waiting room to where the doctors are, I can hear behind me all the junkies. What does he have? Chest pain? I have that. Oh, I have chest pain. I need some OxyContin for this chest pain. Oh. They get me in there, and they give me nitroglycerin. I never had it before. It was awesome. It was awesome. I couldn't believe it. I was kind of fatigued when I went in there. They put this pill under my tongue, and then in 2 seconds, I'm like, wah, pa, pa, ho, ro, ha, he, ha. My blood is shooting around all over the place. I felt like it was gonna come exploding out of my toenails. I'm like, oh, I love this. And then I started thinking to myself, why, as a man of the 60s and 70s, has it taken me so long to discover this little gem? And then they gave me morphine. I'm like, nitroglycerin and morphine? No wonder all these junkies are hanging around down here. So I'm in an altered state of consciousness, and my family comes, and they're concerned, obviously, and they're looking down at me. I'm on the bed. And you know how in a movie, when a guy's on his deathbed, they'll put the camera on the pillow and they'll point it up like it's the guy looking up, and the 3 blurry heads of his family are looking down at him? It's like that. So I'm looking up, and here's my wife, my son, and my daughter, and they're looking down. Dad, we love you. Don't worry. Your brother's coming. Everybody's going to be here. It's going to be just fine. We got the best doctors in the world. Well, maybe not the best. We're not sure they're any good at all, Dad. We're going to try to make sure they don't kill you. And I can see that they're concerned, and I'm concerned for them. And I know they need me to say something to comfort them, and I want to do that. I love them. I don't want them to worry, but I am in an altered state. And so I go to open my mouth to say the comforting thing that I'm thinking about, and this sound comes out. Have you guys ever tried nitroglycerin? It's unbelievable. So the next day, they give me a stress test, and I passed it. And they said, what kind of medication do you take, Mr. White? I said, I don't take any, except I take high blood pressure medication because I have been married 35 years. And for some mysterious reason, it has totally destroyed my vascular system. All right. So this is what they discovered. My doctor, my primary doctor, was giving me too much lisinopril, maybe just a little bit too much high blood pressure medication. And 6 weeks earlier, for some reason that nobody has been able to explain to me, my horrible doctor doubled the dosage. So it turned my blood into maple syrup, and my heart was like, I can't push this shit through here. I'm cracking myself up now. That's not good. So I know that at this point in this story, we need a moral. We need a moral here. Like if you were looking at this story, there would be this empty space here with arrows pointing at it saying, insert moral here. But I have no moral. I don't know what the moral of this story is. I have no idea. And I've thought about it long and hard. And I just want to, this is the only thing I can think of. And I want to say this very sincerely to everybody here. Everyone, if by chance anyone in this room happens to have any extra nitroglycerin, you want to meet me over by the CD table, I think there's a really good chance that you could go home with the entire Dawn White collection tonight. We're going to take a little break now, and we'll see you in a little while.